My name's Hannah, and I never wanted to be a parent, until the day my sister dropped off her 2 kids on my doorstep and disappeared. I was 24. Single. Trying to build a life in a cramped apartment with a cat and a part-time job. Then came the knock. Her 2 kids stood there, clinging to each other like baby birds fallen from the nest. No note. No goodbye. Just 2 backpacks and a tired social worker who said, "You're all they've got." So I stepped up. I gave them everything I had: birthdays, bedtime stories, love, safety. 2 years later, my sister waltzed back into town and told everyone I had abandoned her children. Claimed I went off the rails. That she saved them from me. People believed her. I lost friends. My boyfriend left. I got demoted at work. And through it all, I stayed quiet. Because what she didn't know. I had every custody document. Every CPS report. Every message. Every moment she signed away her rights, in black and white. And when I brought them out, she didn't just lose her kids again. She lost everything. You never forget the knock that changes your life. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were the only days I didn't work a double. The sun had just dipped behind the apartment complex across the street, casting long shadows on the carpet. I was curled up on the couch, hoodie on, heating pad across my stomach, watching reruns of some trash reality show with a half-eaten cup of noodles in my lap. Nothing about that day had prepared me for what was about to come. Then, 3 knocks. Heavy. Measured. At first, I ignored it. I wasn't expecting anyone, and if you live in a big city long enough, you learn not to answer unexpected knocks. But then came the 4th and 5th. More insistent. When I finally opened the door, I swear my heart stopped. There they were, Leah and Max. My sister Megan's kids. Leah was 8, her hair in messy pigtails, eyes red-rimmed and swollen. Max was barely 5, clutching a stuffed tiger by the ear like it was the last safe thing in the world. And behind them stood a weary-looking woman in business slacks with a clipboard tucked under her arm, the kind of person whose face said she'd seen too much. "Are you Hannah Bennett?" she asked. "Yes." My voice cracked from confusion and dread. She looked down at the paper. "You're listed as emergency kinship care. Your sister Megan has been deemed unfit for guardianship. Effective immediately, custody of Leah and Max transfers to you." I blinked. I think there's been a mistake." Megan didn't say anything. The woman didn't flinch. She left them at a convenience store. Walked out. Surveillance shows her getting into a car alone. That was 12 hours ago. 12 hours. I looked down at the kids. They weren't crying. That was the part that stuck with me. Not crying, just waiting. Like they already knew no one else was coming. "I don't have a bed for them," I whispered. "Or food. Or clothes that fit. We have emergency vouchers. I'll follow up with you tomorrow." She handed me a folder. "But for tonight, they're yours." She left. And there I was, a 24-year-old woman with 2 children in my living room and no idea how to keep any of us afloat. That first night was a disaster. Max wet the couch. Leah refused to speak. I found out my fridge held half a bottle of ketchup and some almond milk that had expired 2 months ago. The only thing I could scrounge together was pasta with butter and a can of corn. I put them in my bed and slept on the floor. But sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up to find both of them curled beside me, arms wrapped tight around my waist like they were afraid I might disappear, too. Over the next few weeks, my life was reduced to survival math. $17.43 for groceries, $42 on gas. $150 from my last paycheck. I called off my weekend shifts at the restaurant because I couldn't afford a sitter. I started selling old clothes on Facebook Marketplace just to cover breakfast cereal and diapers. And Megan? Megan was gone. No calls. No texts. Nothing. I filed for temporary guardianship, not because I wanted to, but because the state made me. CPS showed up unannounced twice. The social worker told me I was doing better than expected, which I guess was supposed to be comforting. It wasn't. It took 3 months before Leah said her first word to me. We were watching a cartoon about magical frogs or something when she tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "Are you going to leave too?" That shattered me. I turned to her, pulled her into my arms, and said, "No, baby. I'm not going anywhere." And I meant it. Max started calling me Mama by accident. The first time he did it, he froze like he expected to be punished. I didn't correct him. How could I? He didn't remember anyone else being a mother to him. I still remember standing in the dollar store, watching him pick out a blue sippy cup with cartoon sharks on it, while I calculated whether I could afford both that and toilet paper. And you know what? I skipped the toilet paper. Because the kid wanted sharks. Friends drifted. People stopped inviting me out. They didn't get it. You're too young to be tied down like that. What about your goals? Can't Megan's ex take them? They didn't understand what it meant to sit at the edge of a twin bed at midnight, rubbing a little boy's back through another nightmare, or braiding a girl's hair in the morning while she asked if her mommy still loved her. And I was too exhausted to explain. A year passed. We became a little unit. Mornings were cereal and lost shoes and missed buses. Nights were macaroni and just one more story. Max learned how to tie his shoes. Leah made the honor roll. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were healing. So was I. I learned how to budget, how to fight insurance, how to advocate at school meetings, how to pick my battles. And deep down, part of me believed Megan might never come back. But I was wrong. Because on the exact 2-year anniversary of the night she disappeared, on the very same day I'd signed the final paperwork for permanent guardianship, Megan showed up. No warning. No apology. Just a smile. And that's when everything started to unravel. If I could go back to that day, the day Megan returned, I'd slam the door in her face. But I didn't. Because despite everything she'd done, some part of me still hoped for a reason. An explanation. A flicker of the sister I used to know. It was a warm evening, just past 6. I'd just come back from Max's kindergarten art showcase. He'd drawn a family portrait with stick figures, labeling me Mom and Megan as a question mark. That one drawing broke my heart in a dozen ways. The kids were eating pizza on the couch, giggling over a movie, when I heard a knock. Not heavy this time, light, almost playful. When I opened the door, there she was. Megan. Hair dyed platinum blonde. Expensive sunglasses on her head. A designer purse slung casually over one shoulder. She looked good, manicured, tanned, like someone who hadn't spent the last 2 years in the trenches of survival. "Hey, sis," she said like nothing had happened. "Miss me?" I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't have words, but because every word I wanted to say would have come out like a scream. She stepped inside without asking. "Oh my God, is that Max? He's so big now. Leah, come here, baby." Leah froze. Max clung to my leg. He didn't recognize her. Leah did, but she didn't move. Megan tilted her head. "They're shy. That's okay. It's been a while." I shut the door, arms crossed. "You disappeared." "I had to," she said smoothly, like she'd practiced it. "You know how things were. I was drowning. You wouldn't have understood. You left them at a gas station." Her lips twitched. "That's not how it happened." "Oh, no?" I stepped forward. "Because CPS showed me the footage. You drove away. Alone." She waved it off. "I was going through something. Rehab. Trauma. I needed time to heal." 2 years, Megan. "I didn't want to burden you." I laughed, bitter, dry. "You burdened me the moment you vanished." That night was chaos. She insisted on staying for dinner, just to catch up. I didn't want her there, but the kids, especially Leah, seemed torn between fear and curiosity. I let it happen. I told myself it was for them. I told myself I could handle it. She made jokes. Acted like nothing had changed. Told Leah she missed her every day. Tried to tickle Max. He flinched. When I put them to bed, she asked, "So, when can we talk about me taking them back?" My blood ran cold. "Excuse me?" She leaned against the kitchen counter, twirling her car keys. I've done the work. I'm better. I'm their mother, Hannah. Don't you think it's time I stepped back in? You gave up your rights. She smirked, temporarily. No, I said. Legally. Permanently. You signed them over. You haven't paid a cent of support. You've never even called. Her eyes narrowed. I'm still their mother. And I'm the one who kept them alive. She didn't like that. The next day, she went nuclear. She started showing up at school pickups, telling the front office she was their real mom. She showed up at the playground and handed Leah a Barbie with a note, "Can't wait to have you back." I filed a restraining order. It was denied. Megan knew how to walk the line, just enough to scare me, not enough to trigger police action. Then she started telling people I was unstable. That I'd stolen her kids. That I'd manipulated the system. And it worked. Parents at Max's school stopped talking to me. My boss, who once praised me for being an inspiration, asked if I needed a little break to sort things out. My boyfriend, who'd stuck by me through the worst of it, finally said, "I think you and your sister need to figure this out on your own." He left. I started to unravel. Not publicly, but inside. I'd spent 2 years holding everything together with duct tape and midnight sobs, and now it felt like the life I'd built was being pulled apart piece by her. Worse? The kids were confused. Leah started acting out. Max started wetting the bed again. They asked questions I couldn't answer. Why is Mommy mad at you? Do we have to live with her now? Are you still our real mom? And I didn't have the heart to tell them the truth. Not yet. So I started gathering emails, CPS documents, the custody filing, the court transcripts, the psychologist's report, the drug test results, everything Megan signed, everything she ignored, everything she lied about. I put it all in a big manila envelope. I labeled it Truth. Because I knew what she was planning. She'd whisper enough lies, stir enough sympathy, and one day, someone would try to take them from me. And when that day came, I would be ready. If silence had a weight, the 2 years Megan was gone would have crushed me. The truth is, it wasn't just that she left her kids. It was how completely she erased herself from their lives. Not a single birthday card. No phone calls. Not even a fake apology. Just nothing. The only thing more painful than being abandoned is realizing the person you loved never looked back. Those first few weeks, I told the kids she was on a trip. I didn't know what else to say. Leah asked every night, "When's Mommy coming home?" I said, "Soon." I was lying, but it was the kindest lie I'd ever told. By month 3, she stopped asking. By month 6, Max stopped calling her Mommy entirely. And by the end of the first year, the only time her name came up was in the nightmares. I learned a lot during that silence. More than I wanted to. I learned that Megan had 3 overdoses in 2 different states. That she used my name once at a hospital. That she drained our mom's old checking account, then disappeared again. That she'd been living with a man twice her age, with a criminal record longer than her own. I learned that the woman I'd spent most of my life defending didn't deserve the pedestal I'd put her on. But still, I didn't speak badly about her to the kids. Not once. Not when they cried. Not when Leah asked if Megan still loved her. Not even when Max finally said, "I don't remember her face." That killed me. Because once, Megan had loved them. I saw it. Before she drowned in her own self-destruction, before the drugs and the manipulation and the lies, she used to be warm. Loud. Fun. She used to sing off-key lullabies and dance in the kitchen. She used to try. And when she stopped trying, I took over. The silence turned me into someone else. I went from barely holding down a job to learning the legal difference between guardianship and custody. I figured out how to deal with pediatricians, teachers, child therapists, social workers. I found a daycare that would take Max on a sliding scale, and I found a support group for kinship parents that met on Sundays. I had to rebuild every part of my life to fit around them. There were nights I sat on the kitchen floor crying because we had $12 until payday and Max needed new shoes. There were mornings Leah refused to go to school because she had a stomachache from anxiety. There were appointments where professionals looked at me like I wasn't enough, too young, too underqualified, too broke. But I never missed one. I showed up. Every day. For them. The folder I made, the one I labeled Truth, got thicker with every passing month. I documented everything. Because in my gut, I knew Megan wouldn't stay gone forever. She'd pop back in when it was convenient. She always did. The only difference this time? I'd be ready. There was one night, about a year and a half after Megan disappeared, that I'll never forget. We were at the park, and Max was pushing a toy truck through the sandbox while Leah chased butterflies. It was just peaceful. An older woman sitting on the bench beside me smiled and said, "Your children are so sweet." I opened my mouth to correct her, but stopped. Because in that moment, they were mine. Not by blood. Not by birth. But by love. By sacrifice. By every sleepless night and scraped knee and bedtime story whispered in the dark. And Megan had given that up. 2 years. 2 full years of silence. Until she knocked on my door. With fresh nails, a new bag, and a story I didn't believe. And when she said, "I'm ready to be their mother again," like those years never happened. That was the moment I stopped waiting for her to do the right thing. That was the moment I chose war. I used to think the scariest thing Megan could do was disappear. I was wrong. The scariest thing she did was come back, with a smile, a script, and a new set of lies that she fed the world like gospel. She didn't just return. She rebranded. Gone was the strung-out wreck who abandoned her kids at a gas station. In her place stood a woman with polished nails, carefully curled hair, and a narrative so rehearsed it could have earned her an Oscar. My sister stole my children while I was in recovery. That's what she told people. It started slow. A post on Facebook, reclaiming my life. Reconnecting with what matters most. #family is forever. A photo of her and the kids, one she stole from my old Instagram, as if she'd been there all along. Then came the messages. Old friends. Extended family. Megan's network of enablers who never knew the full story, who had never lifted a finger when she vanished. Now they were in my DMs. "Hey, Megan said she's trying to reconnect. Maybe you should let her? You've had them for a while. They're her kids. Why are you keeping a mother from her children?" I deleted everyone. And then I blocked them. Because they didn't see the broken nights. They didn't see the birthdays with empty chairs or the tears Leah cried when she forgot her mom's voice. They didn't see the paperwork. But I did. Then Megan escalated. She started showing up to school, not just randomly, but intentionally. At first it was at drop-off. Then she figured out Max's classroom window faced the parking lot. She'd wave. Smile. Hold up little signs like "Mommy loves you." The school called me, concerned but unsure. There was no custody dispute on record, because I'd been granted full legal guardianship. But Megan hadn't been declared dangerous. Not yet. I filed a cease and desist. It didn't stop her. She started sending the kids gifts. Toys, clothes, even a puppy, which she left at my front door with a note, something to remind them of me. The puppy had fleas. I took it to the shelter. The note? I kept it, in the truth folder. But the worst part wasn't the stalking. It wasn't the lies she whispered online or the manipulation she fed strangers. It was Leah. My bright, sensitive, thoughtful girl, the one who had finally started calling me Mom. She regressed. Nightmares came back. She started biting her nails until they bled. I found drawings tucked into her notebook of 2 stick figures, one labeled Mommy, one labeled Fake Mom, and a little girl standing between them, crying. One night, I found her trying to pack a bag. She thought Megan was coming to take her. She looked at me and whispered, "Will I still get to visit you?" I broke. Right there, on the floor, surrounded by her tiny pink clothes and her tear-streaked face, I held her and said, "No one is taking you away from me. Not ever." I started seeing a lawyer. I couldn't afford her at first, not really. But she agreed to help pro bono once she saw the folder. Once she saw the court papers, the CPS reports, the signed termination of parental rights. "You're not just her guardian," she said. "You're their mother. The law backs you." But the law moves slow. And Megan was fast. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. She filed a petition. Megan, my sister, filed for reinstatement of custody. And in the petition, she claimed I had emotionally manipulated the children, alienated their mother, and exploited her addiction for personal gain. She said I was unfit. She said I had stolen them. She said I was the villain. I read the paperwork 3 times. My hands shook. I wanted to scream. To drive to her apartment and drag her name through the mud in front of everyone who had ever looked at her with sympathy. But instead, I made a new label on the folder. Court evidence. Then I took a deep breath, looked at the drawing Leah had taped to the fridge, one of all 3 of us holding hands, Hannah written in rainbow letters over the figure in the middle, and I smiled. Because if she wanted a war? She'd picked the wrong mother to fight. I thought I was ready for war. I had the documents, the evidence, the truth. But I wasn't prepared for how deep Megan would dig, or how low she would go. The day I received the formal court summons, my hands were already shaking before I opened it. She'd hired a lawyer. Not a cheap one, either, someone with teeth. The kind of lawyer who knows how to twist facts into questions and paint silence as guilt. The accusation? I was not just unfit, I was dangerous. She claimed I had isolated the children from their mother intentionally. That I had brainwashed them into calling me mom. That I had financially benefited from the arrangement, collecting aid and government support that she would never have accepted. She listed a series of character witnesses, people who hadn't spoken to me in years. A former neighbor who once called CPS on me because she didn't like how many toys were left on my porch. A woman I barely knew from high school who Megan told I was abusing the system. Even our cousin, the one who once told me I should have just put the kids in foster care, signed a statement. Every lie was inked on paper, filed with the court. And when I read it all, I didn't cry. I screamed. I wish I could say I stayed strong. But that week, I crumbled. I called my lawyer 10 times in 3 days. I barely slept. I found myself standing in the kitchen at 2 a.m. watching the toaster glow, unable to remember how I got there. I looked at my kids, playing, laughing, trusting me, and I wondered if I was strong enough to keep them safe. Because Megan didn't want them. Not really. She wanted me to lose. And she didn't care what it cost. Then came the real blow. CPS reopened an investigation. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because Megan filed a formal complaint. Suddenly I had strangers at my door again. Inspecting my fridge. Asking if Max had a bed. Looking at Leah's schoolwork. They were polite. Professional. But I saw the look in their eyes, the same one I got the first time they handed me the kids. Pity. Uncertainty. The idea that maybe, I wasn't enough. My boss called me into her office a week later. "We've received some concerns," she said carefully. "Your sister's been contacting the company." Megan had emailed my job. Claimed I left my children unattended. Claimed I used company time to forge court documents. I wasn't fired. But I was put on review. That same day, my car got keyed. 3 long scratches down the side. No witnesses. No cameras. No proof. Just coincidence, like always. But even as Megan worked overtime to destroy me, she underestimated one thing. Leah was watching, not just watching, but understanding. One night, while I was folding laundry on the floor of my room, she crawled into my lap and whispered, "She's lying, isn't she?" I didn't ask who. I just nodded. She said, "It's okay. I know who my mom is." And then she handed me something. It was a picture she'd drawn, Megan with sharp red teeth and angry eyes, standing behind bars. Me holding Max's hand, both of us smiling. At the top, she'd written, "Real family." So I doubled down. We collected school attendance records, doctor's reports, therapist notes, All of them painted one clear picture: the kids were safe. They were thriving. They didn't want to leave. We even pulled footage from school security cameras showing Megan trespassing. One video caught her trying to give Max candy through the fence, which violated the court's temporary protection order. And still, the court date loomed. 2 weeks away. 2 weeks until I had to sit in front of a judge and defend everything I'd done. 2 weeks until Megan would try to burn me down, piece by piece. But if she wanted to go to war? I had a fire of my own. War doesn't always start with gunfire or screaming. Sometimes, it begins in silence, in whispered strategy and sleepless nights, in the stacking of documents and the preparation of truths too heavy to speak out loud. This wasn't a courtroom yet. This was the trench. And I was digging in. My lawyer, Jenna, became my lifeline. She was methodical, a woman who didn't blink at Megan's theatrics. The more dramatic she gets, she told me, the more she'll slip. We built a timeline. Start to finish. The day Megan dropped her kids off. The CPS reports from the gas station. Her drug test failures. Her missed court dates. The day she signed away her rights, notarized, witnessed, filed. We layered in everything from pediatrician visits to report cards to Leah's therapy notes where she spoke, in her own 8-year-old words, about abandonment. We weren't just building a case. We were building a wall Megan couldn't scale. Behind the scenes, I reached out to everyone who had ever supported me, no matter how quietly. My friend Claire, who brought groceries that first week when I couldn't afford bread. My old supervisor at the restaurant who saw me bring Max to work in his pajamas because daycare had closed early. Leah's third-grade teacher, who saw how often I came in for conferences, how involved I was, how the girl who once hid in the coat cubby now read aloud with confidence. They all wrote statements. Swore affidavits. Recorded testimonials. Each one was like a brick in my fortress. Meanwhile, Megan kept her chaos public. She went viral, in the worst way. A TikTok video with over 80,000 views, her crying in her car, talking about how the system stole my babies. A GoFundMe titled "Help Me Get My Kids Back from My Evil Sister." $3,219 raised. She tagged me on Facebook with a photo of the kids, one she didn't have permission to post, and wrote, "They don't even remember me." She made sure of that. Comments flooded in. "Praying for you, Mama. I hope your sister burns in hell. She sounds like a narcissist." I read every comment. I saved screenshots. I added them to the truth folder. But what hurt the most? Some of my own extended family shared her posts. Not once did they reach out to me. The kids didn't know the full extent, not yet, but they felt it. Max grew clingier. Leah kept asking if I'd have to go to jail. One night, Max came into my room holding his stuffed tiger and whispered, "If you go away, can I come with you?" I couldn't promise I wouldn't cry. I just held him and said, "I'm not going anywhere, baby. Not without you." And I meant it. A week before court, I got a call from the CPS investigator. He was stern. Cold. Professional. But his voice softened when he said, "I've read the full file. I'm recommending no change in custody." I nearly dropped the phone. It wasn't over, but it was the first crack in Megan's plan. She didn't know yet. But I did. The day before the hearing, I printed everything. Tab after tab, folder after folder. Jenna organized them into binders. Color-coded. Indexed. We stayed up until midnight practicing. What if they believe her? I asked. Jenna looked me in the eye. Then we appeal. Then we fight again. But we don't stop. Because that's the difference between Megan and me. She was fighting for control. I was fighting for family. And so, as the sun rose on the day that would decide the future of two little kids who had already lost too much, I got them dressed, kissed their foreheads, and told them I loved them. Then I walked into that courtroom with fire in my veins. Because the quiet war was over. And the real battle was about to begin. Courtrooms aren't like TV. There's no dramatic music. No slamming of fists. Just stale air, hard benches, and the distant sound of ticking clocks. And yet, when I stepped inside that morning, I could feel the tension like static in the air. Megan was already there. She wore white. Of course she did. Symbolism was her favorite accessory, right behind crocodile tears and entitlement. She had her lawyer by her side, sharp suit, fake smile, and a stack of papers she hadn't read. She turned when I walked in. She smiled. Like we were playing dress up in some high-stakes game of pretend. I didn't look away. Because behind me stood Jenna, and in her arms was the binder. The truth. Everything Megan thought she'd buried, signed, sealed, time-stamped, filed. The kids weren't allowed in the courtroom. They were with a friend, safely tucked away with juice boxes and coloring books. They didn't need to hear what came next. Because what came next was fire. The hearing started calm, sterile. The judge, a gray-haired woman with no patience for nonsense, asked us to speak one at a time. Megan's lawyer went first. Ms. Bennett, he said, nodding toward Megan, has demonstrated her commitment to recovery and family reunification. She has completed a treatment program, secured stable housing, and has expressed a sincere desire to re-enter her children's lives. The word sincere hit the floor like a slap. He went on. She was denied contact. Denied visitation. She was erased from her children's lives by her sister, who sought permanent custody under the guise of kinship care but then acted in ways that actively alienated the biological mother. I kept my hands folded, even as they trembled. She is here today not to take anything away, he concluded, but to heal what was broken. Then it was our turn. Jenna stood slowly, opened the binder, and spoke with the calm, icy precision of a surgeon. Your Honor, what Miss Bennett's attorney has conveniently omitted is why she was denied contact. She pulled out Exhibit A, the footage of Megan walking away from the gas station, her children alone. Exhibit B, 3 failed drug tests within the first month of abandonment. Exhibit C, the notarized, court-approved surrender of parental rights, signed by Ms. Bennett. No coercion. No contest. And then she dropped the hammer. Your Honor, my client didn't isolate these children from their mother. She rescued them. She fed them when no one else would. She clothed them, protected them, enrolled them in school, took them to therapy. Everything she did in the shadow of a sister who disappeared. Megan shifted uncomfortably. Her eyes darted, her lawyer whispered something. She shook her head. Jenna wasn't done. She held up the screenshots, Megan's social media posts, the harassment, the doxing attempts, the Go Fund Me. Then came the school footage. Megan at the fence. Megan slipping Max candy. Megan trespassing. Each clip felt like a gunshot. And when Jenna finally rested our case, she ended it with this. Hannah Bennett didn't steal these children. She earned them. Every single day Megan was silent. Then it was time for Megan to speak. She stood. She tried to cry. Her voice quivered in all the right places. I was sick, she said. I didn't know how bad it had gotten. But I got help. I got better. I miss my babies. The judge tilted her head. And why, Miss Bennett, did you make no attempt to contact the court or this institution for 2 years? Megan blinked. I didn't want to cause trouble. And yet you posted defamatory statements online? I was emotional. And trespassed on school property? I just wanted to see them. And filed a false CPS report against your sister? That one hit hard. Megan's lawyer looked down. She had no answer. The judge looked directly at me. Ms. Hannah Bennett, do you have anything to say before I make my decision? I stood. I looked at Megan. At the woman who gave birth to 2 beautiful children and walked away. And I said, they are not your props. They are not your redemption arc. They are children. They needed you, and you vanished. I picked up the pieces. I bled for them. And you tried to destroy that, not for love, but for control. Then I turned to the judge. I'm not perfect. But I'm here. I'm still here. And I always will be. The room was silent. The judge took a deep breath. And then she spoke the words I'd been praying for. Full, permanent custody is granted to Hannah Bennett. Petition for reinstatement is denied. Megan gasped. Her lawyer leaned in. She pulled away. Angry. Shocked. Defeated. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I walked out quietly, binder in hand, heart pounding in my chest. Because this wasn't about winning. This was about protecting. And I had done just that. There's a strange stillness that follows a battle. No fireworks. No applause. Just the echo of everything you survived, ringing in your bones. After the ruling, I walked out of the courthouse into blinding sunlight, like I was seeing the world through new eyes. The weight I'd carried for 2 years didn't vanish, but it shifted. It was no longer fear pressing into my chest. It was relief. Exhausting, tear-streaked, soul-deep relief. Jenna hugged me outside on the courthouse steps. You did it, she said. But I shook my head. We did. She smiled, handed me the signed custody decree, and said, You're not their sister anymore, Hannah. I know, I whispered. I'm their mother. I went straight from the courthouse to pick up Leah and Max. They were at Claire's, knees grass-stained, hands sticky with popsicle juice. Normal? Happy? Safe? I pulled into the driveway, got out, and knelt on the front walk just as they came running. Leah reached me first. She looked up, eyes searching mine. Did she try to take us? I wrapped her in my arms. She tried. Did she win? I pulled Max in beside us, kissed their foreheads, and said the words I had waited years to speak. She'll never take you from me. Never again. They didn't ask questions after that. They just held on. The days that followed were strange. Quiet. Peaceful. Like we were adjusting to a world without Megan's shadow creeping in under the door. Her online campaign fizzled. Her lawyer dropped her. Her GoFundMe was flagged and taken down. Every legal route had been closed. Her public sympathy turned into silence. And then? She disappeared again. This time, I didn't care. Because this time, I wasn't waiting for her to come back. I had the kids' names officially changed. Nothing drastic, just the addition of Bennett to the end of theirs. When I told Leah, she grinned and said, Now we all match. Max mispronounced it as spaghetti for a week, and I didn't correct him. It was perfect. We had a little party. Just the 3 of us and a cake from the grocery store that said Bennett Family Forever. I still keep the plastic cake topper in my nightstand drawer. Proof that we made it. A few months later, I found something buried in a closet while cleaning. An old filing cabinet, stuffed with paperwork from the worst 2 years of my life. Receipts. Letters. That first CPS notice. Every printout. Every court stamp. Every lie Megan tried to weaponize. I sat on the floor, sorting through it all, wondering if I should keep it, as proof, as protection. Then Leah walked in, saw the folders, and said, Is that the drawer with all the bad stuff? I paused, then nodded. She thought for a moment and said, We don't need it anymore, right? She was right. So we boxed it up and drove to a shredding center downtown. I let them feed the pages into the machine, page after page of pain and struggle and trauma. All of it eaten away, strip by strip. It didn't erase the past. But it ended it. And that night, for the first time in years, I slept. Really slept. No nightmares. No waiting for a knock on the door. Just the quiet breath of 2 kids sleeping down the hall, safe, whole, and finally home. You'd think losing custody, publicly, permanently, would be Megan's rock bottom. It wasn't. Megan didn't fall gracefully. She spiraled. And she took everything around her with her. 3 weeks after the ruling, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was our Aunt Janet, the only relative who ever stayed neutral during the storm. She sounded shaken. She came to my house, Hannah. Drunk. Screaming. Said you bought the judge. That you used the kids to get back at her. Are you okay? I asked. I kicked her out. That was the first bridge she burned. Megan started showing up uninvited at the homes of people who had once supported her, the ones who shared her posts, donated to her GoFundMe, defended her in comment threads. She demanded loyalty. When they hesitated, she turned on them. She called one woman a fake Christian, accused another of sleeping with her ex, left voicemails so unhinged that one family filed a restraining order of their own. Bridge after bridge, torched. Then came the public meltdown. One night, she went live on TikTok, mascara running, hair wild, pacing barefoot on what looked like a hotel balcony. She ranted for 23 minutes. Claimed I was part of a family cult. Said I'd kidnapped her kids. Told her followers she had dirt on a judge. Said her own mother cursed her from beyond the grave. It was a spectacle. It was also the last time most people took her seriously. The comments turned from sympathy to concern. From stay strong, mama, to log off. Get help. She didn't. She doubled down. That was the bridge she burned with the public. She tried to contact the kids again, through Leah's school iPad, via a fake email account. She used a fake name, sent anonymous messages with subtle threats. The school flagged it immediately. I contacted my lawyer. The court granted a no-contact order, this time with real teeth. Violating it would mean jail time. And just like that, the last bridge, the one to her children, collapsed. I don't know where Megan is now. Some say she moved states. Others say she's living in a shelter or couch surfing with strangers who don't know who she really is. Every few months, I hear a rumor that she was arrested, that she overdosed, that she found God. But nothing sticks. Because Megan's life became a ghost story. The woman who once tore through my world like a hurricane had become nothing more than whispers and warnings. And I was still standing. One afternoon, Leah asked if she could burn something in the fire pit out back. I said yes. She brought out an old drawing, one she'd made years ago of her, Max, and Megan, stick figures holding hands under a crooked rainbow. I don't want this anymore, she said. We lit the match together. We watched the past curl into ash. And for the first time, she smiled without sadness. There's a moment, after the dust settles, after the enemies are gone and the wounds stop bleeding, where you look around and realize you won. But it doesn't feel like a parade. It feels like standing barefoot on broken glass, realizing you made it through the fire, but not without scars. Still, you made it. A year passed. Leah turned 10. Max started first grade. Our home became quieter, brighter, less haunted. We decorated for holidays. We danced in the kitchen. I finally stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. The trauma didn't vanish, but it stopped calling the shots. I started to feel like a mother again. Not the emergency contact kind. The forever kind. On the anniversary of the final court ruling, we had a little ritual, not planned, just something that happened. Max came into the kitchen, still half asleep, and climbed into my lap. Is it the day you saved us again? Leah brought out the old binder, The Truth. I'd kept it, even after the shredding trip. One copy. Just in case. We sat together on the couch and flipped through it, not like victims, not like survivors. But like royalty reviewing a battle plan we conquered. Leah touched one of the documents, Megan signed surrender. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then, softly, you were always the one, weren't you? I nodded. Yeah, baby. I was. I let them stay home from school that day. We built a pillow fort. Watched their favorite movies. Ate cake for breakfast. I called it Bennett Day, a celebration of the day we became official, permanent, ours. And that night, after tucking them into bed, I sat outside on the porch with a glass of wine and a quiet heart. I had spent years drowning in the fear that I wasn't enough. That I wasn't the real mother. But the truth? A mother isn't made by blood. She's made by showing up. By staying when it's hard. By choosing love, even when it hurts. And when I closed my eyes that night, I didn't feel like a temporary solution anymore. I felt like a queen. Crown emoji. I didn't steal the crown. I earned it.